get started. First up, we have the approval of August 5th, 2021 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look them over first? And if so, does anyone wish to make any changes or edits or? No?
It's totally unimportant, but interestingly, in all of the 600 votes, except the very last one, the actual votes are listed as, Watson I, Wittes I, but in the very last one to close, we only have the motion carry. Very important.
Okay. I'll add that in.
Well, would anyone like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, if you do the honors, Melissa?
Yep. All those in favor, roll call. So Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. Okay, next up, stormwater management permit 2A Strawberry Hill Road. Let me read the notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 26, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. on the petition of Cosmas and Sabrina Mangianis for approval of a stormwater management permit for construction of a new single-family home with associated utilities at 2A Strawberry Hill Road and shown on Town Assessor's Map 46, Lot 26. And I see, Peter, you're here for the applicant.
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Peter Bemis, Engineering Design Consultants. And you did far better at pronunciation than me, so I'm going to just let it be that you announced the hearing notice. This is a 3.1 acre parcel of land located on Strawberry Hill Road. It's at the corner of Flag and Strawberry, once removed. This was one larger lot and had been divided a number of years ago. So there's an existing house on this lot. We're proposing to disturb 1.2 acres, thus the need for the permit application. We do not have any grades in excess of 15%. We will render 8.1% of this parcel impervious, and most of that is related to the driveway. It's a very long driveway. On-site sewage disposal is required, and am I allowed to share, Melissa, or do you share? I'm sorry.
You can share as long as I have the plans.
Okay, yeah, it's the plans that I'm going to share. You have the plans that I would share. So why don't I do that? So I'm going to bring up, oh, wait a minute, I lost you guys. I have to click something in, join webinar, and then you're going to let me share. And I have it up, share. And can everyone see that okay? Great. So again, the existing lot, 3.1 acres, and you can see the driveway coming in from Strawberry Hill. There's an existing garage here, which would be removed in order to extend the driveway. And then there's an existing dwelling located in this position here. The proposal is to convert that to a small barn as an out structure for the parcel. So they wish to retain that building. The soil testing was conducted on the lot within the soil absorption area limits, and we also did one in our proposed stormwater management area. The site plan, again, here's the existing garage. What we're proposing to do is cut this back and put in a trash mat, if you will, on the way in for construction entrance apron, to ensure that we don't track down the existing driveway. Erosion control limits are shown on the plan here, pretty much just perimeter control. We've got a driveway that extends up, side entry garage here. We are proposing to put infiltrative drainage in for all the roof area. So there are leaching pits in these two positions. Here's our soil absorption system. And we've got a rain garden that we're proposing in this position on the lot. Rain garden details are located up here at the top of this sheet with a planting key and then planting methods, procedures. And then we have a standalone plan for a stormwater management plan. So we identify the rain garden and cross section, the infiltrative drainage systems for the roof water, erosion control methods, procedures, erosion control barrier, and then the SWEP procedures for O&M during construction, O&M post-construction, and then the entrance control apron. We did supply a SWEP with the application, and then there's an inspection form that's part of it. And with this project, that inspection form was pretty much related to construction control. What I would probably do is adopt something for the homeowner to then provide annual inspections to ensure that the gutters are maintained and that the leaching pits are still operational in the rain garden. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity to present this. And I can keep the share up if you want, or wipe it out, whatever you prefer.
Let's keep it up for now so we can
Okay.
talk from it. Any questions, comments, or concerns from the commission? Okay. It just dawned on me that Matt is not here. Is this something that Matt took a look at? Do we have a?
No, this is a stormwater only.
Oh, excuse me, stormwater only. Okay.
Melissa, you had some comments, right?
Yeah, I did a quick review that we put on the Dropbox.
And Melissa, are there any outstanding issues from your review?
I think most of the outstanding conditions can be conditioned in terms of I really want the O&M on kind of a standalone to be signed by the new owner. I think that was the majority of it.
Okay. I had the opportunity to go through the drainage report, and this is information that you may already have from doing your perk testing, Peter. But I noticed you used the sort of upper limit of the Rawls infiltration value for a type C soil. What kind of perk rates were you seeing from I see 3-4 test pits here? How do they compare to that 0.27?
They actually compared quite well in the area where we proposed to put the rain garden. Which would have been nice to put the soil absorption system there, but addressing stormwater is just as important, as you know, as a soil absorption system is. So the soils were far more favorable in the location of the proposed rain garden than they are in the soil absorption area. So we can make a septic system much bigger. It's a lot harder to address stormwater. So we put the stormwater where it was a more favorable site condition. Thus, the Rawls rate was also used because of that result.
Thank you. Just real quickly here, just to I saw a comment pop up. We will very shortly be asking anybody from the public who has any comments, questions, or concerns to voice them. We'll get there in just a minute. If you could bear with us, we'll get with you in just a sec. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. I was on the stormwater, the Cultex. What do you recall what the perk rate was? I see there are some test pits closer to the rooftop infiltration units. The 0.2 is it gallons per day per square foot? I forget the units on the Rawls infiltration number.
Right, Rawls is inches per hour.
Oh, inches. Okay. And how did that compare with your infiltration?
Well, Rawls would be much lower. It's
okay. It's more conservative.
We use that imputed rate versus what we found as an experience on the site. So that the one thing I can say is that the soils are better than what the imputed rate is from Rawls, but Rawls is what I have to use to be conservative. in the analysis.
And my last question, excuse me, is so there is an existing house on the property, presumably with septic. How many bedrooms in the existing house versus how many are proposed in the new house?
Yeah, so the existing house will no longer be a house. So those that be removed, and that is, I believe that's a cesspool. It's an older home. So that would just be filled in, properly pumped and filled in. The proposed house is a 5. You know what? I might have done 6, but I know we made it large enough. It's at least 5 bedrooms. I'm just not 100% certain if we made it 6 or 7, but it's I know it's 5.
Okay, and I'm trying to just get a handle on the
I
amount
zoom
of
in. If you'll let me zoom in for a minute, I can. Actually,
of course.
I have a small copy. Let me just see. I want to be right on that amount. Yeah, 5 bedroom. So it's a 5 bedroom.
Okay.
house.
Oh, okay, and the reason I'm asking here, I know there's been some concerns raised regarding drainage, and folks are concerned about groundwater issues and so forth. I'm curious how many bedrooms were in the existing house. With the understanding it's going to be taken down.
There were 3 in that existing house. So
okay,
there are going to be. There will be 2 more, but that was also not a Title 5 compliant soil absorption system, which this one will be in. And we are, accounting for the site conditions properly.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, anything from the commission? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Hearing none. So I'd ask anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, if you could use the raise hand function, and then Melissa will promote you up to speak.
All right. Karen was the first, so I'm going to allow her to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on 2 things at once because we've got a couple people here. Yeah, I'm actually, so I am an abutter, and we, I guess my concerns revolve around the drainage, of course. We have a newer home in the area, and I was unaware of some flooding issues and all the wetland issues that are going on, on the bottom of the slope from where they're proposing to build, when we built, and sort of clued in. We didn't, our builder owned the lot, we didn't, and then we bought. So I just know, I guess when I saw what was going on over there, I know that lot was originally a 1-house lot, and I'm not quite sure how they, made it to be so many structures. But given the sensitive area, I guess from my standpoint, I learned after our house had been built how sensitive that area was, and how sensitive everybody in the neighborhood was about the flooding, because there has been flooding in some of the houses in years past. And I know, more than half of our land is wetlands, and, we're not allowed to do anything to it. So I guess for me, we had asked at one point to take down 1 tree, and they said no. And so I guess that really concerns me that they removed so many trees. Including the house that was already built on the front of that lot, the house that's there, and now they cleared, I would say probably 75% of that lot is cleared. Where is all of that groundwater truly going to go? Because I know on the wetlands in the front of our house, it's always wet. There's a lot of water there. So it's really concerning to me, and it's concerning more for the people. I think we will be fine because we're set up a little bit higher, and we have a lot of French drains that they did put in around our house. But I'm concerned for the people that are lower, that had flooding issues in the past. And I guess I was just surprised that they were allowed to remove so many trees to build, because that's a lot of groundwater. And I know you say you're doing this, that, or the other thing, but that is a lot of groundwater that's now dumping onto that land below. Where I know, because the front of our yard, it's always underwater. Like, it's never not wet. So I guess that's my concern. And my question is that how are you really going to deal with that? Because it's a lot of water that those trees were absorbing on that 4.5 acres that are now gone.
Okay, thank you. I'll speak to the tree issue first. I recall one of Melissa's comments was asking for an approximate distance from the work to the wetland, and I looked myself briefly, and it seemed to be somewhere between 300 and 400 feet away. So the removal of trees, our jurisdiction with regard to tree removal extends 100 feet from the edge of a wetland out, and beyond that, we simply don't have the authority to stop the removal of trees. The authority that we have here in this matter is to ensure that the amount of stormwater leaving the site after the work is done on the property is no more than what was leaving the site prior to construction. And I will let Mr. Bemis discuss we call the features that make sure this will happen. We call them stormwater mitigation features, and I'll ask Mr. Bemis to address that, if you could, Peter.
Sure, yes. So what I would like to do is to start to say the wetlands that are on the abutters property are probably on the order of 300 to 400 feet away. And they would have to be responsible. If they said they wanted to cut a tree, they would need to get permission from you to cut the tree. So that has really nothing to do with our project. Our project, he did go ahead and cut trees, and those trees were within an area that was well under 1 acre of affected area. So it did not trip any sort of permit threshold. What does trip a permit threshold is to then combine all of this land in order to develop, and that's why we filed our stormwater permit. So up to this point, there was really no permit to file. He was well within his rights to be able to cut trees down. But in order to build this home and in order to do this program, we do need to seek a permit from you, thus the filing. The stormwater was reviewed for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events, which is the typical of what we would do for projects. Single-family homes under Mass DEP policy are not required to mitigate stormwater. However, because Southborough has a stormwater bylaw, we do. We do need to address the proposal. So therefore, we did provide that calculation. The rain garden, in combination with the stormwater treatment units for the roof water, ensure that we do that and do it in compliance with DEP policy. And that calculation was provided. It's sealed by a professional engineer that's responsible for the project, and that's a record. So the abutter would have had the opportunity to review those materials, and we'll vet them if they wish, but I can assure you they are done properly. They're the way we would normally present a project of this nature to the town. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I guess I'll address it a little bit myself. I understand the worry of stormwater leaving the site. So the features that are put in to make sure that the amount of stormwater leaving the site don't exceed what was there, back when it was covered with trees, are these subsurface infiltration systems, as well as a rain garden, which is effectively it's a small detention basin that also has some plantings and Generally, I forget the detail, Peter. I looked at it earlier today and I don't recall. There's generally some kind of filter media as well down in the bottom.
Sure, I'll
provides
just zoom in on that. That's just sand mix. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will say this is a much more extensive drainage design than we typically see in a single family house. So being a civil engineer myself, I went through the drainage calculations and found that they were done with the appropriate standard of care, and they address Southborough's stormwater and erosion regulations. I hope that answers your question. I see we have a couple more hands up, Melissa.
The next one is W SEP OMP. You could please identify yourself when you unmute, please. You should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Pat Barton. I live next door. We just had a question about the use for the barn. Peter, I don't know if you know this, and we're just curious. We didn't know.
I actually don't. I know that they just didn't want the structure to be lost.
I see. But the house is going away.
The residential component of the house is going away, yes. I think he just wants like a little gentleman's workshop or man town or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's a garage, yeah. Okay. And that area to the back of the house that's striped, is that the leach field?
This is the leach field,
That
yes. So
shaded
there's a
area,
reserve
right, your mouse
area.
is on- Yeah, you're right. Your mouse is on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And then the last one was Jeff Bessam. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
This is Jeff. So I grew up on Two Flag Road. That's where my mother still lives. And every time something goes on in Strawberry Hill, new development, new septics, new whatever, everything is always reviewed by the town. And no matter what happens when stormwater comes down, it's eaten up more than half of our property in all the years. When I first moved in there in 1976, I was able to walk all the way down to where we had a rock garden. My mom had a vegetable garden behind that. And then there was a big boulder where I used to climb up and play because that was right on the edge of our property in the back. To this day, if you go anywhere near that, you step in, you're going to sink up to your waist in mud. And actually it's until about August before you can even get a lawnmower even close to that area, because it'll just sink right up over the tires. You can actually step on the property and you can watch a wave go underneath the lawn, and you can actually see the lawn ripple. So I understand that what is being proposed here meets Southborough standards as far as storm, rainwater and whatnot. But the fact is that when it exceeds over that stormwater, and like you have this pool set up to catch the stormwater, that's all great in theory, but I can tell you in practicality, it's probably not going to hold the water. Water is going to go somewhere. So I'm just wondering what other contingencies are there that will help benefit that water to go somewhere other than downhill the way it always has been and ends up in these people's properties. So that's our concern. And you know, granted, like I said, everything goes through Southborough's building codes, committees, whatnots, it gets approved. But the aftermath, it's always worse. And this is not going to make anything better, especially where those trees are gone, such as what Karen had brought up, and the flooding of the basements and everything else. I mean, I'm surprised we're not zoned as a flood zone as of yet in Southborough. So that's our concern. I'd like to hear some feedback on that. Of what else do you have in plan that could eliminate that?
Peter, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll do my best. So I did understand and I'm not sure if it's Mrs. Bessam that owns the property or not Mr. Bessam, so I do apologize if not. But I was told that a phone call did come in from Two Flag, and I was kind of surprised because I thought that's at the fringe of my notification area. And then more importantly, we're really not tributary to that. Strawberry Hill Road is, I don't disagree with that. And the front end of our driveway, the very, very front end, would be tributary to your lot. There are some catch basins there at Strawberry Hill. Where they discharge, I don't know. I didn't follow the town's hydraulic network, but I did look on a drainage map, and I do understand that Two Flag Road is at the low point of Flag Road. So anything that would bypass the Strawberry Hill catch basins, anything that would bypass the Flag Road drainage systems that may be there, the country drainage and whatnot, would come to your property. And you likely have experienced that over the years. And for that, all I can say is you could talk to the Department of Public Works about the dilemma you find yourself in. But what I can tell you about the proposal at 2A Strawberry Hill is that our watershed is actually running to the west. You're to the southeast, and the only thing tributary to us would be the front end of our driveway, which we're not changing. It's been there. So you should see no experience of a change at all from what we're proposing. And all of our mitigation that we are providing is to address the stormwater increase that we would have going to the west. And that's why we have presented this to the town, and I'm seeking a permit this evening. So again, I hope that it answers it, but your issue is not with us, sir. Thank you.
And I'd like to add to that, trying to recall the exact topography in that area, Mr. Bessam, but I know on the south side of Flag Road, there have been some terrible drainage problems, and they are largely the result of, I should say, solely the result of a huge amount of beaver activity that the town has been wrestling with. Melissa knows far more details on it than I do, but I know the level of ponding back there has increased in elevation. The last I heard, it was in excess of 2 feet over the last 5 to 7 years, which has been causing some pretty terrible drainage problems in that area. If you're not directly subject to that, you're certainly close by the impact area. Doesn't necessarily help, but as an explanation, I think that's, unfortunately, I don't have a map in front of me showing contours to know exactly where your house lies topographically with respect to that flooding area.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. We have Mrs. Sambrook has raised her hand again.
You should be able to unmute now.
Hi, thanks. Sorry, I don't mean to go on about this, but I do, I appreciate the last comments because I think unless you live in the area, you don't realize how wet the land is. And I've been here on this road for 11 years. And I've even seen changes. I mean, there's the property that's going to be cleared at the top of Strawberry Hill, which is also going to be clearing some trees. It just, again, it does just keep, we're at the bottom, at Hickory and Redgate, and we're to the west. So, the water, it just keeps running. And you know what? I gotta say, the rain garden is pointless. They did the same thing on our property. That was, through the builder. They approved it. They said, oh, we're going to put a rain garden. I'm telling you, the rain garden, it's useless. The water, when it rains a lot, the water just, it was designed to sit, it's not the amount of storm water that is going to be coming off. I mean, I think it's completely obvious with that many trees being taken down. There has to be you can't expect a little garden to absorb the water that 1,000 trees absorbed. It's just that water has nowhere to go. And again, it's not a big concern for me because we are the front of my property. Yeah, that's probably going to flood. I worry about the people who are lower than me on Hickory Road, as well as the people who back up to that property on Redgate, because there is a lot of water there. And I hear what you're saying. And like the previous speaker said, yes, I get that you approve it through Southbourne, it's all approved. But again, it's a lot of water. It's a lot of water that those trees were taking up, that a rain garden is not. And I live it because, when our property was built, they approved a similar design and it works to some extent, but the rain garden, when it rains heavily, the rain garden just overflows and it goes into the wetlands. And I mean, I don't want to get myself in trouble for that because it wasn't my design, but that, and eventually we sort of made another little catch basin next to the rain garden because we had to do something. It's just, again, I don't want to go on and on, but I feel like, as the previous speaker said, it's all great in theory, but I think I would be interested to see some other, another plan to protect the people who are really low on Hickory Road and Redgate, and even Flag. There are lower people on Flag, including 2A. It's just a lot of water.
Thank you. I'd just like to just address one detail. The stormwater is not being handled only by the rain garden on this particular parcel. The subsurface infiltration, I think, is probably, Peter, you can confirm this, doing the lion's share of the work with respect to decreasing the rate and volume of stormwater leaving the property. And then I'll also say, I kind of glossed over this at first. The stormwater controls that I see in this plan are in fact quite a bit in excess of what we typically see on a single family home. And in fact, they exceed what we would typically ask for if this was adjacent to a wetland filed under a notice of intent. So I'm sure Peter is well aware.
I'm just going to add that if it were not for the larger land area that Mr. Magninius had cleared, then I probably wouldn't have filed with you, and we wouldn't have had to do anything. So I find it a little bit disingenuous when an abutter is complaining about what their builder did versus what we're proposing here. We did analyze a 100-year storm event with this proposal, which is almost 9 inches of rainfall. So we're not doing this in a vacuum, and we do this as a very objective study with detailed analysis. I'm not just giving you a bunch of words here. I actually submitted a backup to prove this. And the abutter is just putting words that have no backup. So I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I will say that our plan stands on its merits. It can be vetted by any third party. It's been available since the public hearing notice went out. And if someone wishes to take issue with it, they can. And I will defend it properly because it was done properly. Thank you.
Thanks. I see Jeff has his hand up in just 1 second, Jeff, if I may. I just, in defense of the abutters, being immediately downhill of a large area of clearing, I certainly understand their concerns. And I'm hoping tonight that by explaining some of the features in the plan will give a little bit of assurance. And you brought up a point that I meant to raise myself. In fact, our stormwater regulations and the regulations of the Massachusetts DEP in performing stormwater calculations, they how do I explain this? The design storms that you use for designing a system like this, the 100-year storm, the 25-year storm, and so forth, the required design data we've realized in recent years doesn't really capture the whole picture. You know, with climate change, we've had rainfall depths increasing. On this plan, although it's not required, engineering design consultants used higher figures from a more recent scientific study that, in fact, later tonight, we're going to be discussing making part of our stormwater regulations permanently, but it's actually not the case yet. So, there's been some talk of other projects where rainfall effects have been seen. Well, this is built in anticipation of close to 25% more rain than other similar projects. And with that, Jeff, you had your hand up.
I'm just very, very quickly. I mean, maybe one point of confusion as people are looking at the what look like these small infiltration systems and the rain garden. These are meant to offset the additional impermeable area of the house and the driveway and all this. But what I heard in the comments was a lot about the removal of trees, and maybe I don't know, Peter or Ben, you can comment. What would be the expected impact of the removal of trees, which is maybe going to be replaced by lawn? I don't know, on the ability of the lot to take up water.
Right. Yeah. So no, we factor that in. That's how the drainage calculation is done through the watershed areas to determine what was the impact, because we basically are looking at the curve number for the land value. So the amount of rainfall doesn't matter. Whatever rained yesterday is going to rain tomorrow. So that's why the amount of volume doesn't change. But what does change is the change in character of the land. So the tree did hold more water, and the lawn will hold less water. So therefore, we need to hold more water in these on-site features. So that's why we collect 100% of the roof water, and we've made our chambers big enough to hold basically that 100-year storm event. That's why there's so many of them. I'll point them out that each one of these are the chambers, and they're here. So this is a very large underground system. And then this rain garden is a very large rain garden. Again, I don't know what the abutters rain garden looks like, but this is a pretty substantial rain garden with a lot of new plantings that would be put in it to support attenuation of the stormwater. So I believe it's a very robust plan that we put forward. And again, if it were not for the fact that essentially with the existing lot and the new lot, he had 3 acres of land, he could have easily avoided the 50%. But once he went over an acre, I told him you have to get a permit. So, and the only I want to make clear here is that the trees that were moved were only these trees in the back. This was already open land here. So there were no trees removed from this section of his land. It was just in the back. Because early on in this process, I had spoke to Melissa and I said, look, he hasn't altered an acre of land. He's altered probably not even a half an acre of land. He cut trees. But by the time he was done, he was definitely going to be altering over an acre of land. Thus, we need a permit. So, thank you.
Thank you. I see Mrs. Sambrook has her hand up again. Melissa, thank you.
Sorry, I don't want to keep, going in, but, I just want to clarify that I guess I'm taking offense to the fact that I'm being told it was my personal experience and that I feel like my experience on my house is very similar. The builder did do a very good job. And I think that's my point, is that our builder did a very good job, and there is still constant water in the wetlands. So, I guess my point about the rain garden, and maybe I, didn't realize what your rain garden was all about, but I just know from my experience, and to me, it's a very similar experience because our house is built in a similar spot up on a slope, and there are people below, and there's still those wetlands are very wet, I guess was my point. And I don't want you to, I don't want it to be taken that our builder didn't do a good job. The builder did do a good job. It was all done before we had anything to do with it. I had no idea that there were issues in those wetlands, but they did do a good job. We don't have flooding. I don't think anybody has had flooding on Hickory, except for one of my neighbors. Yes, one of my neighbors, but it's more related to what's going to be happening at the top of Strawberry Hill versus that land. So yeah, I guess that was just my point. I guess I just took offense to saying that, that my experience is not related at all to this, because I feel like it is very similar. I have a newer house. We are right up above the wetland. And there's a lot of water. And I guess that's just my concern, is that now there's just going to be more water, and just that they're taking the right steps to actually catch that water, so it's not being redirected into the wetlands. But, you know, it sounds like they have a plan. So, you know, it's a concern, but on paper and from what you're saying, it sounds like they have a plan to catch it. And I guess that's just what I'm hoping for.
Thank you. And just to let you know, the commission certainly is not discounting your experience. We've gone through the plan in a great deal of depth. And as I said, it's designed to handle the stormwater to a far greater degree than we typically see for a single family home. I was, as a civil engineer, I was impressed with the level of stormwater mitigation on the site. With that said, I see no more hands up. Melissa, you said earlier that you've, oh, I'm sorry, Judith, I didn't see.
Sorry, I'm raising my actual hand rather than my little icon hand, so that's not really very helpful. I don't want to, extend this conversation. I think it's a good conversation, and it's important that we have these conversations. The only thing I'd say is we, through Melissa's efforts, are very, very vigilant as a project progresses, both in the construction stage and afterwards, to make sure that the plans are executed as approved. And if there are issues that arise that we hadn't anticipated, we review and we will take action. And I can think of, at least two major areas in the town where we've been very active in discussing ongoing stormwater issues, Deerfoot Road being one of them, which has come up and been discussed on a number of occasions. And both residents and builders have been involved in those conversations. And we've actually had builders take additional action to mitigate against any of the issues. So I think it's important that the homeowners, but also the abutters are aware of that. This is not a kind of, we approve the stormwater permit and it's done. This project will be monitored very, very closely during the construction phase and afterwards.
Thank you very much, Judith. Okay, so Melissa, actually, I can't see every commissioner. Here we go. Okay, I see no more hands up. Melissa, you suggested earlier that the few outstanding concerns you had could be suitably addressed through conditions. Could we go through those specifically? Just hit the highlights.
So specifically, I had it open. Was the O&M plan, it's on the SWIP, but just having it on a separate sheet, so it wouldn't necessarily change, but just having it a little bit more legible for the record for the homeowners to have as well. And then the only one is I had a few tweaks that I was proposing to the rain garden that I talked with Peter about briefly today, that I think it's mostly just placement of the same plants, kind of moving them in different places throughout the slope. So that is very minimal in my opinion, that the final planting plan can be kind of confirmed with the agent before that's implemented. And I think that was it for the outstanding issues.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I think we'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Melissa, if you would do the honors.
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Have you put together draft conditions?
Yeah, and we can either do that now or we can do it at the end if whatever.
Yeah, I just wanted to just see where we stand here. Okay, and then we can craft these last couple of conditions.
Yes.
When it comes time to vote on conditions. Okay, so we'll take care of that at the end of the hearing, Peter. And for those watching, we have a standard set of conditions that accompany any approval of a project, and then any special conditions that come up in the review or public hearing, we append to that as part of the approval to make sure that the project is done right. So with that, I think we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is the continued stormwater management amendment, number 6 Turnpike Road.
You get me again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let me really quickly read the notice here. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, August 26th at 7:15 p.m. on the petition of 6 Turnpike Road LLC for approval of an amendment to a stormwater management permit for the modification to underground infiltration for expanded parking areas shown on the town's assessor map 39, parcel 26. Peter.
Thank you. So again, Melissa, if I could do the share, I can bring up the site plan. I think it would be easier.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Doing minutes for clerkless.
6 Turnpike share. And again, I'm hopeful that that's all visual and legible. So that's the whole site. We've opened this hearing and we had some discussion. We had to have peer review done by Fuss and O'Neill. And then we did do an edited plan. So this is the revision that I have in front of you tonight. So I'm going to just zoom into the area where the concentrated work limits are. And so what we're basically doing with this proposal, for those who may not have been in attendance at the last meeting, is take an open detention basin that's located in this position here, and providing a pre-treatment system, which would consist of context CDS units. So there'd be one put here and one put here, and that would then collect all of the hydraulically connected catch basin drain manhole system to a treatment unit, and then go into underground storage that does allow infiltration as part of the program, although we didn't take credit for it in the calculation because the first program didn't do it. So we didn't take double dip, if you will. We wanted this to stand on its own. So we provided enough storage volume to not only hold all the storm events that needed to be evaluated, we did them with the new criteria, which the previous calculations didn't do. And we also discharged at a lower rate without, again, taking credit for any infiltration that's likely to result from this proposal. The connection out to Route 9 is the same. We were asked to get corroboration from the MassDOT that because when changing our drainage system and we connect to the state system, we needed to get some verification of that. So I did submit everything to MassDOT, explained the fact that we were actually treating and reducing the rate of volume to the highway, and they were most pleased with that. And I got an email back confirming that we didn't have to do anything further. I have been before the planning board. And there are comments back from Fuss O'Neill. There really aren't any issues for you folks with stormwater because we really have to just change the way we manage the stormwater management system on site. I did provide Melissa with a report for the 2020-2021 stormwater season, if you will, and I told her that if we got approval from you folks, we'd write a new one up based upon the new SWEP we provided. that outlines this system, because now we'll have these treatment units that need to be maintained. And that's part of our packet. But what we had some shortcomings on was lid. And the planning board did bring that to my attention, that I had to find ways to try to address that, and I will at the next planning board meeting. But when it came to lid, the Fuss and O'Neill was kind of rejecting the fact that we were treating the stormwater with the contact units versus the open 4 bays that we had. So I have to kind of do a little bit more research on those items, and I will spend more time on that when we resubmit back to Fuss and O'Neill. But the stormwater piece for the town, assuming from the Conservation Commission, that section, there really aren't any open items for us. And I think Melissa did concur with that. So I'll just kind of leave it at that I can present the rest of the plans. Be happy to answer any questions, but I do believe that the project is in the proper position for a stormwater management permit. I still have to go back to planning board because I have a change to lid, and I have a change to the site plan that needs to be addressed. So we are adding parking spaces, and we're moving the light fixture. And the other thing we didn't realize was when we added these parking spaces, it put us into the next threshold for handicap parking. So we had to put another handicap parking space in, but we were able to fit those all across the front. And so I'm not presenting you with the new plan, because this is the plan that that I submitted to you folks for consideration. The other plan will show a different striping plan. So to go through the other sheets, this is our detail sheet showing the galley system for the stormwater, the catch basin, because we are putting a new catch basin in, the outlet control structure, the contact treatment unit. During construction, silt sacks would be used in all the catch basins. This is the standalone SWEP plan. And then the fourth sheet was the cornerstone as-built plan for the site. That was the existing conditions plan. So I'll jump back to these sheets. I'll stop sharing when you want me to, and I'll stop talking and let you folks ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So Melissa, I looked through your comments, and the one thing that, excuse me, Fuss and O'Neill's comments. The one thing that jumped out, it looks like the new stormwater regulations that we approved 3 meetings ago are coming into play here with regards to total nitrogen, total phosphorus. Is that Peter, have you done? Yeah. Would you like to address that?
Sure.
It's new for all of us.
Right. And so it was new, and they basically had said to Melissa, well, the issue with it is it's the expense. This project has a financial scope. Obviously, the owner of this property, T&L Auto, recently constructed the facility. Had they any idea that they could have done their stormwater system this way, they would have just done that in the beginning, because they're really going to incur all these expenses all over again. And he has a budget to do the work, and what we've drawn so far is within the budget. When I did present this to Contact, because they can provide us with a product they call Jellyfish, the Jellyfish product would actually absorb almost half of my budget, and I wouldn't have built the project yet. I would just have the treatment unit in the Jellyfish, but I couldn't do the rest of the project because I don't have enough money. So Melissa had said to me, part of it would be to ask for a waiver because of the financial burden that it would put onto the project. I would also just state that, for the record, is that we're not avoiding any of the other treatment systems. We will still be treating for sediment removal. We will still put the ground recharge with groundwater, so our roof water is going in to continue to go in the ground, and now our parking lot water can efficiently go into the ground. With this galley system, because we're holding it back more, so I think there's an environmental benefit that way. We're reducing the amount of water at the rate going into the state system, which is somewhat taxed. My facility's on Route 9, so I do watch in these heavy rainstorms the water going by my site, and it used to go into my parking lot and go into my catch basin. They did fix that. But the infrastructure on Route 9, is old. So there is a benefit to what we're proposing here. And I would just say that, this of all the sections in Southborough, this is probably our more urbanized area, being along Route 9. And I would hope that this small parking lot that I'm adding wouldn't be viewed as needing to have significant treatment beyond the TSS removal, because again, the project just can't afford it. So that's about what I can say. Sorry, but thank you.
Thank you. I would love to hear from the commission on that, as well as any other issue. I suspect the person here with the most experience with nitrogen and phosphorus removal may be Sherry. Hopefully in Westboro, you've had some experience with this, and could, if you have, maybe tell us a little bit about some strategies that folks have used on projects that you've seen.
I wish I had a really good example for you. It's something that we have challenges with in Westboro, and I've actually am in the middle of doing a nutrient study for one of my Great Lakes because I have such an issue with it. Yeah, I mean, retaining most of the stormwater on site, trying to do groundwater recharge and treating it is really, yeah, I don't have anything great to add to that other than, maybe this site doesn't, landscapes differently, or we put it some conditions about how they can, what chemicals or whatnot they might be using so they don't add to it. But I understand that it's costly to treat these things. So we try to reason that out as well in Westboro. But yeah, sorry, Ben, I really wish I had something awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I none of us have any experience of this. This is a sort of a classic unfunded mandate that came down from the federal government. We were under our MS4 NIPD's permit. We must do this, and now we're trying to figure out how to make it work. You did have what I sounded to me like a great, at least partial solution, which is a restriction on fertilizers. I think to some degree tackles both nitrogen and phosphorus. And Peter, we were just on the detail sheet just a little while ago. The subsurface infiltration chambers. These are the concrete units that you're using.
We're using a galley. Yeah, it's a standard galley.
Okay, great. And open bottom, of course, with crushed stone to promote infiltration.
Crushed stone, right.
Okay.
What I would add, what I was going to say though is, like, if this was a new construction project in the phosphorus nitrogen, so what we could have done, but the site doesn't lend itself to it because all this infrastructure is in place, is we might have been able to have overland flow through this section of what we discharged here, and that would have given us that opportunity. So there are ways to do it. It's just, unfortunately, this site's already here. And so the only way to really do it was with the contact jellyfish or similar product. I don't want to just keep saying contact, but I do go to them usually first when it comes to this type of product need. And I was shocked at how much money it is. So, and it's really because I have no way to separate the flows either. The way this site's set up and how all the infrastructure is already here, we have to work with what's on site. So we're treating stormwater streams that we wouldn't necessarily have to treat, unfortunately. So keeping it in perspective, that's really the issue. Would you like me to go to that detail sheet?
No, that's okay. You told me what I needed to know. I'd love to hear from the rest of the commission on how they feel about this. And I guess I would say that if with some sort of an approval that includes a waiver, typically what we've done is we cite mitigation that's been proposed by the applicant to justify a waiver. And And if there's any other mitigation that folks think of, that's one avenue, yeah, I'm just curious, this is a brand new regulation to us. I'm curious what everybody thinks.
Ben?
Yes.
Okay, since most of us, or myself, I'll speak for myself, are not that familiar with this and the impact of this regulation, and we're responsible for understanding and implementing it, it probably would be a good idea if the members of the commission understood this regulation in more detail. Maybe we should need some education here as to what it is, what it entails, why is it required? Because at this point, as you said, it's a brand new regulation, and we need to understand it in order to manage it. So I think before we go ahead and vote on something we don't really understand, we should have a better understanding.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
I mean, along those lines, can we make a little different? Can we make something like a finding of fact that, this is a new regulation recently approved? These plans were probably drawn up before that was known, or that it, somehow grandfathered? Is there any sort of transition timeline for enforcing them? I don't recall exactly the details.
I will also add, this application is a little bit tricky too, because we're actually technically amending an existing permit, even though it's expired. So, if you did kind of want to move forward and issue this waiver, it's based on the fact that they are it's not very simple, but, changing what was approved and putting it, back of what we're underground. If you want to kind of go at it that way, I think you're more than able to. Even though this is a new application, it is technically an amendment to an existing one that was issued in 2016.
Thank you, Melissa. No, that said that way. For my part, I'm absolutely on board with that. We've issued amendments in the past, and we've never had a discussion of, in the issuance of an amendment, trying to, incorporate a rule change like this. It's simply hasn't happened. I think we can't, yeah. But to Carl's point, yeah, we're kind of flying blind here. Where does the rest of the commission sit on acting on this tonight versus requesting a continuance so that we can educate ourselves on this and try to get it absolutely right?
Ben?
Yes.
It sounds to me, if I understand, the plan is going to change. There's going to be changes made to the plan after this to accommodate planning board requirements. So we probably want to avoid closing tonight, because that won't allow us to, if I understand this correctly, won't allow us to accept a new set of plans. So probably a continuation is probably appropriate here, right? Now, do you agree with that, Peter?
Well, what I was saying is the plan change would be the striping here. I'm not going to add any more asphalt. So it's just going to be a different layout and how the parking is. And I didn't anticipate that we would have to change anything else, because we just really needed to address the lid component. And I wanted to discuss with Amy Bell at Fuss and O'Neill regarding the fact that we deliberately just didn't take advantage of infiltrative stormwater, because we just didn't want to mix apples and oranges in the way we analyzed the site. We wanted to put in. Okay, I'm sorry.
So
it really isn't going to change my design. Yeah.
So you're saying that physically this is going to, there will be no changes
unless the
Yeah.
planning board mandated something else. I mean, they did talk about some trees. So there are trees located here in the basin, and we had said that any of those that were viable, we would plant them along the rear lot line. We do have our requisite number of trees, and I know one of the members had suggested a different type of tree. And I had said I was fine with, in any sort of tree. It didn't matter to me. We just kind of picked a red maple, and they had said they weren't salt tolerant. So, and I would hope they didn't use a lot of salt here anyways. But that, it's that sort of thing. From the stormwater perspective, I think we're there. I'd very much like to try to get this work done so the site could be stabilized before winter set in. So I was kind of hopeful we could do this tonight. I was also going to state that I'd be glad to get information to the commission through Melissa regarding phosphorus and nitrogen removal items, so you'd understand it a little better. When you're starting fresh and new, I think it's a lot easier to try to implement them than it is to try to retrofit an existing site. So I don't think I'll be the first person to come to you and say that this is a bit of a burden. We're only putting on a small addition to the parking lot. It's just very difficult to try to address something that kind of needs to be incorporated in the big design.
Yeah, do the new regulations apply to new and amended plans? Or is it just for new plans?
I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so any new submission.
Yeah, does that mean an amendment too, right? That's a new submission.
like a
I think-
redevelopment counts as this towards it.
Great, you guys have more experience than I have. You both were talking.
I'm fine with the fertilizer. We've been recommending to use a biodegradable fertilizer, anyways, more natural fertilizer, and using lower content for nitrogen and phosphorus. I will say that I don't believe that they spend a lot of effort on their landscaping here. I don't think the site's definitely out of whack. He's allowed much of the site to be more natural, which tends to make me believe that he's probably not putting down any fertilizer. So I think we're actually probably going in the right direction with the site condition. Right now, there are a few cars that probably shouldn't be where they need to be, and I really would like to try to get the parking lot fixed so they will be where they need to be. So I have no problem with those sorts of conditions being put on this. And I can see to it that they get followed. They hadn't done a SWEP analysis since they built the facility. I had assured Melissa that when I provided the 2021 report, that this would be done regardless if it wasn't us. There would be someone responsible to do it going forward. So we're trying to go in the right direction with this. And if you could see your way clear on the nitrogen and phosphorus issue tonight, then I'd be grateful. But I understand if you want to wait, we can wait too. I wasn't sure when your next meeting was.
How does the rest of the commission feel about this? Frankly, I'm on the fence. I can kind of go either way here. I can argue it from either direction. I'm looking to hear
Ben,
what other.
I'm going to complicate it for you. Depending on how we go about this, and if we give a waiver, is that going to set a precedent for us? It's the only question I have. And I understand all of this, and I'm happy to issue this waiver because I think Peter has given it, minus, I don't know, something super extreme. But I think if the applicant can show that they're generally tried everything other than millions of dollars to try to treat this, and I'm not familiar with the jellyfish, any of that. I haven't actually heard that yet. So I would be curious to read more about that, Peter, if you wanted to send that along.
Sure.
But if we come up with something to say that we want the applicants to at least try to manage these things, given this new unfunded regulation, this just throwing that out there as food for thought.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
And I will add one more thing. When I told you that number, that was because I'm trying to treat the, the whole site. That's my issue, is that I have no, like if I was just going to do this one little area, I probably would have an easier time at it. But my problem is that all this infrastructure is already coming into this location, and there's no way to separate what's the new versus the old. So and the old doesn't have proper pre-treatment in our estimation, and when we did our calculations. So I'm doing like a threefold issue here. One, I'm treating all this existing water that comes in with these new systems plus the new, and then I am also processing it under the ground. If I was just to try to do nitrogen and phosphorus removal for this one little piece that I was adding, it would be a lot easier, but I have no way to separate that from the rest of the project. And that's the dilemma we have. So if we were to do this jellyfish product, I'm basically doing it for all of this. And that's why it's so expensive. Thank you.
Okay. The more I think about it, the precedent that we risk setting is that stormwater management amendments, we would be viewing differently than a new application. This is a plan that we approved and issued a stormwater management permit for. We're simply amending that permit by the only change that's being proposed to the drainage is effectively to move it underground. It still honors the design intent that we originally approved. I've sort of talked myself into being comfortable with acting tonight. If others in the commission want to, if the prevailing sentiment is to wait until next meeting, I will certainly use that 3 weeks to educate myself on nitrogen and phosphorus removal. So rather than keep going over and over, I guess I'll leave it to the commission and see if anyone wants to issue a motion, and if they do, if the motion passes, and if not, we would be looking at a continuance, I guess.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and that would be a motion to issue the amendment?
Or to close. To close
Okay,
first.
to close. Is there a second on that motion? Okay, so hearing. Oh,
Couldn't unmute, sorry.
okay.
Did you second it, Sherry?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So all those in favor, or Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
No,
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yeah.
and Smith.
Yes.
And then we can come back and do the issue at the end, if that's okay. I have it ready. We can go over it.
Great. I saw that on the Dropbox. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Have a good evening. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, you too. Okay, I understand our Marlborough Road agenda item has been, they've requested a continuance.
Correct.
I will just read the notice real quickly. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, August 26, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located along Marlborough Road on behalf of the Southborough DPW. The project description is roadway and pedestrian improvements. So we are looking for a motion to continue to our next hearing.
Moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Melissa?
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
yes,
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay. Let's see who we have here in the audience.
Can we go to Fisher Road? I believe I
Yeah,
see
that's
Dave
what
Mason in the
I was
audience.
going to suggest that. Yes, please.
Thank you.
what's this?
This is for the Fisher Road, Chestnut Hill discussion of activities at the farm. It's number 4. Dave, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Making a little pop-up.
There you go.
Right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. The commission just wanted to just discuss operations on the farm. Some commissioners were curious whether the operations had expanded to the east somewhat towards the wetlands. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I guess what I'm saying is no, not really. What I did is I put up right side of the bullpen. Okay, I put up a little area to store all the manure in, but in the late winter and early spring for the last 35, 40 years, which if you guys have been around town, you must have seen it. It's always there because all the neighbors, all the people, a lot of people in Southborough, Hudson, Marlborough, I give them all the manure for their gardens. They come down with their pickups or their buckets in their trunk and they come and get all the manure. Mm-hmm. They do. And then whatever I have left later, I always take it over to, it used to be Zecco's, but now it's S&M, I guess it is, or L&M or S&M. The same place where Zecco's used to be anyway. It is, and then they use it to mix with their dirt to make it a much more expensive than black dirt for them, I guess. And that's what we've done for what, 38, 40 years. Matter of fact, some of the people, which you probably know some of them, that was on the board used to come down and get the manure. So the only thing that has been changed, honestly, is like I said, if you look and see the manure is probably, I don't know, 10 by 8, plywood facing straight up. That's to hold the manure in there more, because what we try to do is separate it a little bit better to keep the real good stuff for the no hay and nothing in it, to be able to use it for your tomatoes and your cucumbers and stuff like that, instead of just shrubs and stuff like that.
I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. I'm just going to say it back to you and tell me if I got it right. So there's an area where you had been storing the manure historically, and you put a sort of a plywood enclosure to keep it localized. Is that?
Yeah. What it is, we just put that up mainly to separate it.
Okay.
So we can have I guess you saw the what's the word I want to use? Well, I don't know how to explain it. Like a Caddy versus a Chevy. The Cadillac was in that area that I did, and that's what we use on all the good plants. And the other stuff just goes to Zecco and stuff, and they put that in, in their dirts.
Okay.
Not Zecco, it's L&S now.
The commission, we'd been looking at aerial photos. This would be two meetings ago, and we couldn't tell. It looked like there may have been a shed or lean-to or something of the sort that moved to the east somewhere over the last 5 to 7 years or something like that. And it may be we had just seen this enclosure running north. I think some other. Okay.
And there's a couple of goats in it.
Okay. There are some other.
That comes right off of the manure shed.
Okay.
I know it hasn't been there for a number of years. It's been there for probably 2 years at the most.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Some other commissioners, when this was discussed, had some questions, concerns that they wanted just to bring up.
Yeah.
Anyone on the commission wish to I recall when we had the discussion, I mean, did it revolve only around the, this, what we thought was a shed or a lean-to? We now understand it's more of a manure bin kind of structure. Is this, were there other questions or concerns from the commission? Are folks generally comfortable with this, our new understanding?
Ben, can I ask a question? I guess Melissa was our eyes on the ground on this. I mean, does this sound consistent with what you have seen?
Yeah, I think so. I think we kind of discussed mostly about the proximity and, I guess the enclosure is better than it just being a pile there. So in the eyes and that aspect, making sure that the resource area is protected, as long as they're within their state guidelines. If the commission didn't have any other further concerns, I think that's where it stands. But just making sure that there's no kind of new structures without permits and such, and kind of making sure it's within the Wetlands Protection Act as well.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be honest with you, we don't have any more room to put any more structures up. So, I mean, but.
Mr. Mason, could I just ask a quick question? I'm looking at an assessor's map right now.
Yeah.
Now your house anyway is on a lot that, of course, abuts Fisher Road and Northborough Road.
Yeah.
And the train tracks there. Yeah. There are two lots north and south of the train tracks to the immediate east of your house and the barnyard area, I'll call it. Do you own those lots also? I'm just curious.
No,
You do not. Okay. Now so your eastern property line, I should know this, having gone past there so many times. Is it fenced in some fashion, or do you know your eastern property line?
Yes, it is fenced. Well, it's fenced from the garage. The garage is underneath the house or underneath the second floor. It is, and it's fenced from there all the way over to the railroad track.
Yep.
On the heights, all the way over to the main road, all the way back to where my driveway starts.
Yep.
In there, and Aero Fence did that because it had to be, you had to have a fence up when McCarthy's put the pool in for us back in '98.
Okay. Yeah. So the only reason I asked was that's sort of a more assurance to the commission. There was concern that somebody had noticed there may have been this new shed. We already discussed that. We now have a good understanding, but that operations had started to shift towards the wetlands. That was the concern, especially having a fence there. I think that to a very large degree sort of alleviates that concern. You've got you know where your property line is. There's a hard edge there. I think
I don't know if you're talking up by the house. I think you're talking about Chestnut Hill.
Yeah. South of the railroad tracks. I'm sorry.
Yes, but
do you have a wire fence or anything?
There's been a wire fence. There's a great big. What kind of tree is that, Richard? Willow. Weeping willow.
Sure.
There's a great big weeping willow right there. There's a fence right side of the weeping willow that's been there for years, and right up against that fence, the dirt that we use for the garden, it's a pile probably about 3 feet high and probably about 6 feet wide, that we put it right up against the fence. So we need that when we need to refreshen the garden, it's there. All right. We generally get about 8 yards a year to put there to refreshen up the garden. The garden, I shouldn't probably say this, but the garden this year really sucked because my wife had her a new knee put in, and I'm not a gardener. She's if I was going to have a garden, no one have one, but she's the gardener, and there's really no garden because she had a whole knee put in, and she's just getting over that now, so we'll have the garden next year, better garden. We got a few tomatoes this year, that's about it.
Are there any other questions or concerns the commission wants to raise at this point? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Mr. Mason, we thank you very much for coming in and educating us here. I think we all feel much more comfortable. Of course, our jurisdiction here is primarily wetlands. And we appreciate your coming in and letting us know what's going on adjacent to the wetland here. And I think you've given us all a great deal more comfort. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to come in.
You guys want any manure? Welcome. No, you know.
Thank you very much.
And I did learn something because I had to have my son-in-law come over. Who was I talking to on the phone?
That was me, Melissa.
Oh, well, I had no idea in the world what the heck she was talking about. Zoom or whatever the heck it is. So Rich came over to help me out with it. He's got it on an iPad here, and I can see all you guys. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I can see all you guys. So,
okay.
Well, I hope I answered your questions. And
you did. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right. Nice meeting you all.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay. We have some requests for extensions here. First off, 22 Lovers Lane is requesting a 3-year extension. Melissa, I understand the property changed hands.
Yeah, so earlier this year, we approved the amendment for the new plan. It was actually less impact. So now that the new builder has officially owned the property, this expires in October. So he's asking for that 3-year extension so that he can build it to the plan.
Okay.
So
and
hopefully it won't take the 3 years, but just in case.
And in reviewing it, you see no hurdles or stumbling blocks.
Nope.
So questions, comments, concerns, or a motion?
I motion.
Issue for 3 years extension. Thanks.
And do we have a second?
Second?
All right. Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Slacking. Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay, moving along. Extension number 2, request for 3-year extension, 84 Main Street. Has that already expired?
Yeah.
Holy cow, time flies.
Yeah, Ben seems longer than that.
That was one of the first meeting I came to before I started. So yeah, it'll be 3 years in September.
Jeez. Wow. Yeah, for some reason, it seems like that was last year. So we're talking about an extension, not a certificate of completion. So again, questions, comments, concerns, or a motion?
Can we, this is the one we're expecting to see wildflowers next year.
Yes.
Right. So can we do a 1 year to see if the flowers grow?
I agree with Carl.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some other issues regarding that will come up at a certificate of compliance as well. I've read through the order, our order of conditions, for instance, and it requires native plantings, within the buffer zone. And I see that there are a number of plantings done that are not native. To open a whole can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, Ben. No, you guys can do the 1 year extension, and I can also, I think I wrote in my agenda notes to you guys, you can condition that as well. If you want I don't know if a progress as-built is going too far, or even, kind of an expanded discussion of, what is currently there, and maybe a letter to them from us stating, these are our initial concerns that are still remaining. Here are the conditions that you should be adhering to. Can you at least outline, and ensure compliance with these specific conditions, the native plantings, the wildflowers? We're still waiting on a plan for the little lover's cottage, I think he's calling it, and that I forget if it was a rain garden over there, just kind of like a grass swale, but kind of the final planning for that. So there's still a lot of things that are outstanding that I think, issuing the 1 year can be better than the 3, because they have to come back next year and answer and ask the same questions. But you're also, more than able to kind of ask for something else in the meantime to demonstrate that, okay, you're getting this 1 year, but you need to ensure that you're still in compliance with your permit.
Okay, to my earlier comment, I'll just point out special condition number 43. All landscape fertilizers to be used on the site shall be limited to slow release organic-based fertilizers only. Only native, non-invasive plantings shall be allowed. And that, of course, is with respect to the buffer zone. I don't know if this is an issue that the commission wants to take up at all. And if so, to take up at this juncture, or wait for a certificate of compliance, or, I feel ultimately it will come up at the COC stage.
I don't see a reason of asking them to ensure that that's happening right now. A statement from the owner or the contractors or something to get this permit saying that they're complying with that.
Yeah, progress report or something like that.
Yeah, anything along those lines. I've got several sites that I do things like that with, but
Yeah, the motion could definitely be, issue a 1-year extension with the condition that a progress report be submitted within, 1 month or 30 days, something like that.
Sounds good. Somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
In a second.
Was that Carl? And then who was it? Who did this? Okay, Sherry. Okay, thank you. All right, Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, Stonebrook Court. Looking for a 1-year extension. They've got to be closing in on completion.
Yes, I believe the only issue that is left is clearing the purple loosestrife out of the stormwater basin. So they're preparing as-built. I think Cornerstone has been back out there. I know they've had an open space inspection. They might have to have another one, but they're preparing to close. So they just want that 1 year to get that last punch list items done before they're ready.
Okay. So again, questions, comments, concerns, or just a motion? And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melissa.
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. All right, next. 5, we have a request for a certificate of compliance, 124 Deerfoot. Do I understand that that's placed on hold?
Correct. Yep. They're still responding to Fuss & O'Neill's comments and doing some of the work that was outlined by Amy to rectify it.
Thank you. Next up, 1 Lynbrook Road, stockpiling and grading concerns. I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I don't know where this one sits right now.
Yeah. So the homeowner at the last meeting came to us and we discussed the restoration plan that he submitted that was very basic. So since then, he's submitted pretty much the same plan, but with the the approximate distances and numbers, but did not provide the written narrative that the commission asked. So he's still working on that. So once I have that, we can hopefully by the next meeting kind of review it, give it its final okay, as we discussed at the last meeting, and then hopefully issue a violation closeout. Will be done. But we are looking more so of what kind of the specifics on the wetland and wildlife mix that they were going to use, the timing, and how they were going to kind of be removing and regrading some of that.
Okay, great. So they're now, you feel that they're working, trying to work with you and are making some progress, and
Yes, yep, they're getting there.
fantastic. That's good news. Good news. Next up, Central Mass Mosquito Control, beaver and mosquito control work at Liberty Estates Open Space.
So this was something that in a butter around Liberty Estates gave me a call because they had a hornet's nest or a bee's nest there in the past. So I went out and tried to find approximately where it was because someone from the DPW offered to clean it up. And while I didn't find any bees or hornet's nests, what I did find was a lot of old beaver activity and an extreme amount of mosquitoes and mosquito larvae. So normally we're not ones to run to mass mosquito control, but this was definitely a circumstance that called for it. I think I sent you guys a picture, and I can bring it up if you want, of the beaver dam that's left, and downstream is extremely stagnant. So it definitely needs some work. So Central Mass Mosquito Control went out. Katrina Proctor, who's the wetland specialist there, I talked with her, and so she made it out a couple weeks ago and agreed that they needed to get it on the job book ASAP. So they booked it for October, pending the commission's approval and wanting to sign a landowner permission slip. And then the only other discussion would be if we wanted them to clean some of the debris from the stream downstream from where it has been so stagnant. It being open space, the commission may not want that extensively. When I was there, I would recommend at least cleaning up, maybe the first 20 or so feet from the dam. And it's really just hand raking and bringing all the sticks out so that it can flow a little bit better. It's nothing too intense. And I did upload the brochure, if you guys wanted to look at that a little bit more, but that is what I'm hoping. It also they would ask us for the dam removal itself needs an emergency order. So because it's only good for 30 days, we would issue it closer to the October date. And if we didn't have a meeting, I'd want to make sure that you guys were comfortable with me issuing it and then you guys ratifying it at the next meeting, pending their full submittal of kind of their work plan. So that is where kind of that stands and how the commission wanted to move forward with that.
From the picture, it looked like the beaver dam is still sort of actively maintained by the beavers. I'm just, my only concern is, they'll remove the dam and a couple of months, it's just gonna be right back where it was.
Yeah, the down trees that I saw didn't look like recent activity. So it didn't necessarily look like in the past year or so beavers had been there, but definitely in the last couple of years, it has most certainly been there, and it's definitely caused a lot of stagnant water, and the consequences that come with that.
I see a hand up here.
Would you like me to allow?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Kevin Robbins, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, what are the consequences? Can you explain?
So the consequences of beaver dams is the water levels rising in that pond area, and also just the extreme amount of mosquitoes and the mosquito and the bloodborne illnesses that they carry as well.
I mean, the pesticide use in this neighborhood is already very high.
It wouldn't be pesticide use, it would be hand removal.
Okay, then it seemed like, it sounded like there was going to be more mosquito control from the state.
No, so it's the state agency doing it, but it's all hand work done. So it's no chemicals will be used. It's, hand removal and hand tools.
Okay, if you are in contact with the state, can you please make sure that, if you have a voice to them, make sure that they're in compliance when we request not to be on the spray list and we put up the signs and they ignore it and just blow right by it at night. You know, because I've got 3 little kids developing, and these pyrethroids are potentially endocrine disruptors. I've got an organic garden in my yard, and I don't appreciate that when I put myself on the list and they just drive by emitting, you know, the mosquito spray.
Do you mind mentioning what property you're at?
1 Independence Drive.
I can definitely mention it to them when I talk to them about it.
Thanks. I've left messages, but I haven't heard back from the state.
You did the registering online as well to exempt your
Yeah.
property, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Just want to
yeah.
make sure.
Yeah, and then, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns from the commission? Everyone's generally comfortable with what Melissa has proposed, and we're comfortable with Melissa. We can vote to allow this, but for her to issue the emergency approval for the dam removal, give her the authority to do that at the correct time.
And sign the landowner's permission form.
Yes. Okay, so that would require us to come into the townhouse. Good. Yep.
Correct. There is a hand raised in the audience, Ben.
Oh, yes, please. Let's promote them up.
Linda, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you. I'd like to just echo Kevin's sentiments that we have a lot of pesticides being sprayed in the Liberty Estates neighborhood, and I'm glad to hear that this is going to be a hand removal of the larvae and not additional spray. My comment on the beaver dam would be, I think perhaps we should make sure that the dam is no longer active. I'm not sure of the commission's wildlife qualifications, so I don't mean to sound flippant, but I'm just not aware. If we do have a beaver, I don't really see a problem with having a beaver. It's supposed to be a conservation area. Obviously, we're very highly sensitized to Triple E in this town, and so I understand the concerns about the standing water, but I don't think we should be removing wildlife or their homes when we're already doing a lot of spraying. And I would also ask to second Kevin's comment on contacting the state. I've put my signs out for no spraying, and I've also registered online. And still the trucks go by with their sprayers pointed at my property. It's very distressing. Thank you.
Thanks. Just one point of clarification, that the hand removal will be hand removal of obstructions to water flow in order to allow some draining of the ponded areas so that the mosquito larvae won't have a place where they can, grow effectively, but it's not specifically hand removal of the larvae, just to clarify that. Also, that's very disappointing to hear about the spraying. We've not had that experience, but we're not in a low-lying area where we have a big mosquito problem. It's really distressing to hear. I simply assumed that people's wishes in that regard were being respected.
Kevin's hand is back up.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, just another comment. Individual homeowners spray their own properties, which, I mean, it's the same chemical that the state uses. I mean, that's their right. But in terms of the risk, I mean, I don't see even, a little bit of stagnant water as a major concern, given that there haven't been any Triple E cases or maybe 1 or 2 reported cases and maybe 1 case of West Nile. I mean, if the pandemic's put anything into context, is that these risks are extremely, extremely low. And I'm not sure that even removing the beaver dam in October is going to do anything, because by then we presumably have had a frost. So what's the point in October?
Yeah, I'm guessing mosquito control has a reason for doing it at that time of year. This is something that and I don't think the rest of the commission, frankly, have expertise in. You know, we defer to their expertise in this matter. With that being said, I guess we're looking for, if everyone is supports what Melissa has discussed, for a motion to authorize her to issue the emergency dam removal authorization at the appropriate time, and to allow the hand removal of flow obstructions from the watercourse. And we have a
Barry,
second.
did you second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we split these? Can we split them? Two
We'll
votes?
split the votes. What do we do? We modify the motion? Somebody like to?
Greg, Russ just motioned, so do you have to run that through first?
Yeah, we have a first and a
Okay,
second.
okay, it's procedure.
Okay. I mean, Carl, if this is something you feel strongly about, I'm comfortable voting no, and we can revisit it and break it apart.
Yeah. Just quick, I understand that people's concerned about destroying the beaver habitat without really good cause. The mosquitoes, I can tell you, the mosquitoes are wicked. There's a great book called Mosquito, if you ever want to read it. It'll scare the living daylights out of you, about how much mosquitoes have affected history. But the beavers, they haven't changed history that much. So I tend to like to leave them alone. So that's my read anyways.
So yeah, it is appropriate after a second to have discussion on this. And as part of that, I would just ask, are there other commissioners who feel that they would like to split this into two approvals, one for the removal of the watercourse obstructions and a second one for the beaver dam removal?
Well, that's one and it's all. So the water course and the beaver dam is the same.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was some. You were saying 20 to 30 feet downstream from the beaver dam.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's, I get what you're saying. Okay.
I'm not.
You guys don't have to have Central Mass Mosquito Control do the hand raking downstream. That's more than acceptable. Because it is open space, and that was what Katrina even mentioned, and that, it's recommended, but because this is town-owned open space, it's well within your right or, your thought to say no to that. It just might.
To the beaver dam removal but okay to do the hand raking, right? Is that what you're saying?
So they would remove the dam, and kind of the sticks that are immediately adjacent to it, so they don't just, as water comes out, they don't close back up again. But it's more, they would be hand raking the downstream aspect. I would recommend not more than 20 feet, only because that's where a lot of it has collected downstream. So I just don't want it to dam, 10 feet further down when the water is released again. So the hand raking, I really am only recommending so that we don't have the same problem as soon as they remove it. And it's very minimal. They're not going to be coming in with a backhoe scraping out and dredging like they did behind Ken's, because that was extreme. This is just them removing sticks and twigs that have been down, that have kind of washed down, that will cause the same problem.
And to clarify, we're only talking about the dam that you sent the photo of, right? So this
Correct.
is just the small obstruction to flow. We're not talking about like some big beaver house somewhere where somebody's living.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. Let's conduct the vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay. I like to watch the panic. Not my panic, so it's okay.
Okay, stormwater management bylaw regulation updates and discussion. So I guess this was an agenda item, but was not addressed really at the last meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So Melissa, I saw what you put together on Dropbox, the town by town comparison. Thank you very much. It was incredibly helpful. And put together, frankly, very well and made it very understandable. It was really, one of my issues is the SMP threshold, and it's interesting to see how other communities have handled it. And I get the impression looking through it, that whole, X number of square feet or 50% of the lot, it sounds like there was a draft stormwater management policy that went around and everyone said, okay, we'll do that. Because a number of communities have the exact same language. That's something that I'd like to see changed. There are a couple of communities that didn't adopt that language that are, substantially different from that. In fact, higher thresholds, lower thresholds, different types of thresholds and so forth. So I feel like we've got the freedom to try to find the best solution for Southborough. I've got some ideas in that regard, and it sounds like at least a couple of others also, share my sentiment that it's a little unfair to the owners of smaller lots, the way that it currently operates. That's sort of I've got a couple of issues here, but I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder. Anybody have areas of our stormwater management rules and regs that you think need our attention, or changes you'd like to see, or?
Can I put my 2 cents in about the lot size thing?
Yes.
Rainfall and topology cares little about human lines on the ground about whose lot size is bigger and smaller. It doesn't care. It just doesn't care, right? And I think the intent of stormwater is to prevent flooding, and no matter how big your lot is or how small your lot is, the impact is the impact. And if you're having more than a certain amount of impact, you should be subject to the stormwater regulations. If you have a big lot, small lot, doesn't matter, right? 10,000 feet is 10,000 feet, no matter where you are. So that's my 2 cents.
That's exactly where I'm at. So this may be, people may think I'm nuts. Please feel free to tell me. I mean, the solution that occurred to me a couple of years ago is, so we see these NIPD's documents that every site disturbing more than an acre has to put together. And the way that program works, they call it the Massachusetts CGP, the Categorical General Permit. If your site qualifies, if you've got an acre of disturbance, the permit is effectively automatically issued to you. It's up to you to comply with it, with first all the paperwork requirements, and then second the stormwater controls and so forth. But the point being, it's a set of requirements you're required to follow, and the enforcement comes in if you don't follow them. However, there's no application process where you go before some board or committee and demonstrate compliance beforehand. You are simply, you have to know what the regulations are and you have to follow them. And if you don't, we saw what almost happened on Clifford Road. They almost got a pretty big fine for not following, in this case, the NIPD's regs. So anyhow, with that preamble, this is just an idea. My idea is that for projects like from say 5,000 up to 20,000 square feet, we have the equivalent of the CGP. We have a set of standards that we put together as the commission that people disturbing that much land are required to follow. And perhaps we could, have a document that gets distributed with building permit approvals. We can put it on the website. We can make folks generally aware of that. And folks with those smaller disturbances won't have to hire a surveyor, hire an engineer, come in and see us, potentially pay for a peer review. Where we sometimes add, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to the cost of a fairly small project. And I've felt at times it's a little unfair. And then have some threshold. I'm just throwing out here 20,000 square feet. Above that, you do the SMP application, come in, see the commission, and go through the standard process that we're all familiar with. So that's just my idea. Other communities do exactly what Carl said, 10,000 square feet. If you're under it, nothing. If you're over it, apply.
Wasn't there some discussion in a previous meeting about the problem of people who are doing a huge project and then they just split it into a bunch of little lots to avoid having to file? So if you have a flat number of square feet, you have this ability to sort of slice and dice.
That's number 2 on my list, segmentation. So the DEP identified that problem a number of years ago and came up with some good language. Basically, if you have parcels that are under common ownership and part of the same development scheme and are developed within 2 years of each other, it's considered a common project. And if, for instance, you develop one lot and completely finish that lot, and then the very next year develop the lot next to it, which is under common ownership, under that scenario, you would, let's say you then hit the square footage requirement for an SMP, you have to retroactively file on the first lot and incorporate the second lot in that filing. That's in the Wetlands Protection Act. It's an anti-segmentation regulation.
Ben, question,
Yes.
retroactively file? I mean, if it doesn't comply, what happens?
They got to fix it.
Ooh, okay.
It's because that's a really burdensome thing. Basically, what it does is it says to developers of multiple lots, you don't want to take this chance. You're going to have to file. You want to file now when it's not going to be incredibly burdensome. And the problem that you've identified, the DEP has the same apparent problem, but folks have learned that it's not something that you mess around with, because you'll have to come in and file retroactively.
Carl, it gets costly real quick.
Yeah.
I'm just, there's this, I think we've all heard about this. There's this idea of one of the things that the revolution was about was the concept of ex post facto. I'm not a lawyer, so all I know is you can't make laws against things that had already happened, right? And it has its difficulties, but it sounds like you're reaching back in time. So you may be reaching back in time in some instances. That I'm not opposed to the idea. I just wonder if it's going to put somebody in a bind. They buy a lot and then the developer does the next lot, and then suddenly they're now needing to make changes to their lot, and they had nothing to do with it. I'm just cautious about this. So I agree with the sentiment. I like the sentiment, but I'm just concerned about that.
So, Carl, your criticism is, of course, very valid, and it's also this situation exists with the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah.
And the situation you describe, well, I mean, I guess I've never encountered it having happened, because it can be pretty burdensome. And it sounds like Sherry may have actually run across a situation like this in the past. And it certainly, if anyone has any discomfort with it, if we move forward with this is something we would be a good candidate to run past our new town council to make sure that we're on the right track and make sure that we've identified and avoided any pitfalls. Just to throw it out there, Carl, I was expecting you to bring this one up, adopting NOAA Atlas 14 as our.
Oh, yeah.
standard.
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like most people are using it now anyways. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be the, people are just.
But not everybody. Yeah,
Not everybody. Peter's, I mean, we see Peter most of the time and he's on board with that, so.
He is.
It's not like we're gonna surprise the living daylights out of a bunch of people. I think even our old Park Central folks used it too, right? I mean, it's just, so it's not.
I wish I could remember what project it was, but even in the last year, we had somebody come in and you asked them if they used NOAA 14, and the answer was, said very kindly, of course, no, and you can't make me.
That's right. Yeah.
It's happened. So if we adopt it here, and then at some point in the future when we talk about our stormwater management bylaw regs, if we adopt it there also, that will bring us in line with current stormwater knowledge. The NOAA Atlas 14, and I think is a pretty easy one to incorporate. The segmentation, I think, because DEP has crafted the language, I think we could fairly easily put something together, and I think we would want to have that perhaps reviewed by town council. Now, as far as the SMP threshold, where do folks sit on that? Any ideas, any approaches, or honestly, and one of them is, leave well enough alone.
Well, let me just say, I don't think well enough is good.
Yeah. So is there, there's my idea that I threw out there. Another one that I don't have that spreadsheet open right now, but at least a few communities just have a single threshold of, I think, 10,000 square feet is the one that sticks out in my mind. That you're under 10,000, no requirements. If you're over 10,000, you file an SMP application. That's sounds like a pretty easy path forward.
One of the things you want to, if you have, I like the idea that there's just a hard threshold. Even though, Ben, I don't disagree with your thing, but when you have stages, it just like we have now, it just causes confusion about what stage am I in, right?
Yep, and it's putting a lot of work on Melissa's shoulders, which I recognize, to drive around town and when you see a big disturbance, try to, see where they are they in compliance and so forth. And, so we don't want to completely overwhelm Melissa either. So.
Yeah, she'll want to raise.
I don't know. That's a good reason to finally get my GPS.
Yeah, I know, right?
And GIS technology. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would be perfectly comfortable with the 10,000 square feet, or frankly, even a little bit higher than that even.
So I guess my question there, or my thought there is, the problem is whenever you set a limit, you're always going to have concerns from the people just over or just under it, particularly the ones that are just I'm at 10,050 and the property down the street is at, 9,920 and, I'm being penalized because I've got a little bit more land. But so putting that thought to one side, I guess the way I'm kind of trying to get my head around this is to say, if we think about all of the issues that we hear about on the commission, and tonight was a good example of the, Strawberry Hill, will the things that Ben has suggested, let's use that as the start point, will that address people's concern about stormwater? Or have we still got to think about that separately? And Deerfoot Road is always the one I go back to. I mean, Ben, because that was the one that you
Oh, yeah.
went out with you and you kind of introduced me to the whole, like the very first time I went out with the Conservation Commission. And then I'm like, oh my God. And, I keep going back to that development and because I've seen it being built and thinking about the stormwater and the still water issues there. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come up this week, because when I went up there the other day after the storm, I'm like, there's still an awful lot of water. But that, so not to say that I disagree with Ben's points. I think we should just, whichever set of track we go down, I think it's incumbent upon us to do that kind of pressure testing against, well, will this actually address the issues that we, see around the community? But I do like, I like the NOAA, I do like the segmentation, and I thought I'd seen somewhere in the notes, I can't remember which spreadsheet, I thought I'd seen somewhere in the notes where there's actually a community that has that kind of aggregation type of rule. I can't find it. I was just looking, but it was early this morning.
I saw it in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, but so yeah, those two I think are great. It's just the limit one that I'm kind of struggling a little bit with. Anyway,
I think Deerfoot Road is a great example, Judith, because that's like the perfect storm of stormwater management loopholes. There's the segmentation issue there, where they treated each lot individually because it was A&R. And then there was the threshold issue because a couple of those lots were 49.7% of the lot, but not quite an acre. And they fall through the cracks without a stormwater management permit at all. So looking at, obviously the segmentation issue, I think that would have been addressed. And then if we're going with a one size fits all limit, which Carl and I have kind of, come out as proponents of, because those lots were so large on Deerfoot, really those, it was our limit is 50% of the lot or 1 acre, and those are big lots, and it's the 1 acre that would have been triggered. If we set a hard and fast limit at 10,000 or 15,000 square feet or what have you, every one of those lots would have required a stormwater management permit.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing those lots had was an incredible slope on a bunch of them. It was interesting. Sound like some towns have different requirements if there's a significant slope. That seems really maybe a bit complicated to keep track of and monitor, but I'm interested in your perspective on that.
We have that, right, Melissa?
Yeah, I think all the ones, all the ones that have the 15% slope or greater, it's pretty much word for word with what we already have. And the one with the common development is from Boylston, and they had specific language about the A&R lots as well. So that was a good one to look at for that. The also interesting one about that one is they had 180 days to start. Otherwise, it need to be reviewed by the agent again, which I found very interesting.
There must be a story behind that one.
Yeah.
I have stuff like that where they'll hold it for years and then come back and now it doesn't meet the standards. So we're thinking of revising it to state that upon time of construction, before pre-construction, if you must still meet the standards. You know, we're trying to work on language like that. We don't have it quite figured out, but basically saying if you hold on to this for 20 years, it's not going to work. It's not going to fly.
Well, ours expire after 3 years, right?
Is it 3 on stormwater,
Which
Melissa?
Is it 3 years? We're not, we don't.
I'll bring up Bartolini Business Park, who has had their permit since 2008 when the bylaw was enacted, and it's still valid. So
Yeah, but that's because we keep renewing it. I mean, that's our own
correct.
fault.
Yes.
That's our
Yeah.
own fault.
And because they also have, it's interesting. I think they have a superseding order from DEP. So like it's tandem.
Yeah.
Well, we could have something where, say something like, the second time you want to renew, it must meet the standards, you know, that buys them 6 years, something like that. Well, if you can't meet the standards after 6 years, maybe you should have asked for it back then.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, you get one renewal, and then after that, excuse me, is there more information that folks think they need to help get their minds around what we're looking at here? And also, are there any more additions or changes that anyone would like to see made to the stormwater regs? And then that first part, if is there any more information that anyone feels they need that Melissa put together these spreadsheets that were a big help to me. Is there anything like that would help you putting this all together? Okay.
Are you addressing that to Melissa?
No, to the commission as a whole. Like if there's some information that you think you need that we could ask Melissa, she may know just how to get her hands on it more quickly than we would be able to.
I don't think there's any particular science available that says over a certain, stormwater becomes important after a certain size. To Judith's point, I mean, she was alluding to that. What's the real number? Which is a good question. And I don't think there's anything we can, unless Melissa knows of something that can help us out with that. But
okay.
And also, just occurred to me, there's been in a lot of these conversations discussion of the fact that cutting down a tree is not ground disturbance. I think we had talked about having some wording. So if you cut down a tree, that still counts as ground disturbance because, ultimately it's gone.
Yeah, well, I have to bring this up. I'm having 6 trees taken down around my property next week.
Do it quick. We're changing the rules.
Yeah. I'll come for you, Carl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be there driving down middle.
Yeah.
Sherry, how does Westboro handle that, Sherry, with tree removal but not stumping and grubbing? Is that, do you treat that as disturbance for stormwater?
No, if you stump and grub, that's when it becomes disturbance. Yeah, because we have a
And I
lot of
think it's
people removed.
We're there formally, right? I mean, that is a formal definition on our part. Do we have that as a formal definition? Or do we just?
I mean, that's one thing that, you could expand on in terms of vegetation clearing, what that definition means.
Yeah.
That's definitely one way, cut and dry that could clear that up.
Yeah.
I think one of the towns also had something like that. I'll see if I can pull that.
That would be great. I can see some issues you sort of have to work around as you're doing that. There's tree removal where there's no intention in the future of doing any development, for instance. You've got an area where you've got an obstructed view and you want to take some trees down and you're not going to remove the stumps. You're going to let it grow up to brush and maybe brush hog it every couple of years. You know,
As long as it's not 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's a lot of trees.
With that, you run into sometimes tree harvesting, and I don't know if we have a lot of parcels that do that, but that's removal of trees. They usually don't
Right.
necessarily stump and grub too much, but will that trip this permit where that one maybe doesn't need to, or has different measures, you know, just food for thought.
Yeah.
Usually with that in Westboro, it just becomes whether we just review the project and go, okay, you're gonna affect this. You need to apply, and we just have a conversation. And most applicants get it, but
Yeah.
we haven't been fought yet either. So
So Melissa, yeah, you mentioned another community may have dealt with that in some way. I'd be interested to see how they address it.
I mean, I guess if somehow either in the wording or in the evaluating the applications, if the plan is to leave it as forested area, then it's fine, right? But if they're, cutting it to the stump with the idea that, at some point it's going to become grass or stay cleared, then that seems like disturbance.
That's the intent.
yeah. You gotta watch out for intent.
Well, it sounds like we may need a little time to continue mulling over it, in particular the threshold issue. And of course, I'd like to hear what Mark has to say also, to have him involved in the conversation.
He's been doing this longer than any of us.
Yeah, yep. I mean, some of this stuff, I feel like the NOAA Atlas 14, we could vote on it right now, but we'll wait and do the update all at once. All right, does that sound good with folks? We'll table it till next meeting. We can bring Mark in and maybe learn how other communities have handled the tree removal issue also. Okay.
But did I ask the question about the slope? I was kind of asking for your 10,000 square foot proposal. Would you want to have a different slope threshold, or would you just want to leave it at 10,000 square foot?
I'm not wedded to the 10,000 square feet. We've been okay with, on a big lot, clearing, 1 square foot shy of an acre. So, for my part, I'd be okay with 20,000 square feet, with half an acre of disturbance. And then with steep slopes, I think our current standard is a 15% slope. It's 5,000 square foot disturbance. I think it's our current. And I'm comfortable with that also, because with slopes that steep, we saw on Clifford Road, boy, when you get a steep slope, the risk goes up exponentially. It really does. So yeah, okay. All right, anything else on this before we, okay. Conservation scientist agent report. Anything going on?
Site-wise, we didn't do too bad. On Friday, by the time I got there before the big storm, Middle Road was fixing their silt fence, and they were the only one out there that I saw on Friday, so I'll give them that. I had 81 Breakneck fix a couple sections before the storm. There was a small breach at 81 Breakneck on the side that is away from the resource area, and it was just a small amount of sediment that had gone over the silt fence, so it wasn't a big issue. And then the owner by Saturday morning had already sent me pictures of it all rectified. So he was on it. The Corderville Bridge is the Corderville Bridge. I've been having trouble kind of getting in there just because they've had a lot of heavy machinery in there every time I tend to go by. So I usually kind of just skirt around and try and look where the wattle was on the construction pad with the riprap. There's now Jersey barriers. So there's always been heavy equipment working. So I haven't been able to go check behind the Jersey barriers. So if anyone is in town when they're not working and would be able to go check behind there to see how that stream is, because that's where one of the breaks was currently. That's my biggest concern. I'm going to try again tomorrow as well. But other than that, town held up pretty good. There's water everywhere from the storms. We didn't get hit as bad with the hurricane, but the rain that we had the couple days before kind of did a good amount of washing. But, I think in the long haul, we held up pretty well with most of our construction sites, and any issues that there were, they were rectified within that 24 hours and was notified. So that was great. So that's it for pretty much open sites. As you can notice, Katie has left us. She's off to London. So we posted the recording clerk secretary job. I've gotten one application. I think there's one more with the assistant town admin who's on vacation this week. So we're going to talk with them next week. And then hopefully we can have someone for the next meeting as best case scenario. But I'll keep kind of poking on that. We posted it on the MMA website, the MACC website, and I think Vanessa had put it on Indeed as well. So didn't really get that much traction. I know the Board of Selectmen also posted a recording clerk as well. So if we didn't get enough, we were going to tag team with some applicants and see what we could find out. And then other than that, I have a couple more items to talk about tonight. I sent you an email, but the Halloran conservation restriction is officially recorded. It's donezo. I think that's pretty much it that we have on the horizon for CRs. So that's kind of nice to have that done. Big thanks to SVT for orchestrating that, and the Belniaks for the license and making sure that that was all settled. So all the T's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and the I's are dotted. And so other than that, I had some last minute questions on a couple sites. The first one being Calander Field again. We had an initial discussion with the rec director. I think after they went to the CPC, and Ben kind of mentioned that they might need a stormwater permit. So I met with them yesterday or the day before, and they sent over kind of more descriptive letters as well on what they were going to do. And I can share my screen as well if you'd like to read them. And so essentially they're still trying to, you can see the letter, right? On the side. I want to make sure it's not the other screen. Essentially, when we were walking, I don't know if plans have kind of been minimized since the CPC presentation, or they've just kind of further confirmed what they're going to be doing. But they really were pushing for the fact that they are just trying to reestablish the pre-existing drainage and swales that were surrounding Calander Field. So the only kind of addition is going to be, I believe there are two 2-inch drains, lateral drains underneath the field that will be coming from the hillside of Carriage Hill and conveying a little bit more water to the grass field on the other side, just to more evenly distribute some of the flow to get to I don't even know what it is that's collecting it at the end, but it's kind of like the raised catch basin inlet structure. So they're it's basically completely vegetated. I was looking at some of the aerials, and even a couple of years ago looks night and day from what it looks like now. I don't know if anyone has kind of compared those. You can see on some of the aerials that they had put riprap down the slope from Carriage Hill to kind of help diffuse the flow a little bit more so it wasn't scouring down the slope. I think there was 3 or 4 riprap channels, and those have since kind of eroded down and or become completely covered in vegetation. And because that slope has kind of eroded a little bit, the swale that was there is, pretty full. So on one section, it's running water, catching water, and essentially flooding out the field, because at some point, they think it sounds like, looking through some of the paperwork in about 2012, some of the abutters decided to do some maintenance, and they really kind of bermed up the middle of the swale. So it's not actually flowing anymore around the property and getting to the drainage structure as it should. So what they're doing and proposing is just clearing out that swale again to its existing condition, so that water can convey more easily. They're going to be dethatching the top of the field and laying those 2 lateral drains, and that would be the only drainage improvements that they're doing. The rest of it is just, they're going to also be clearing out the other side of the grass swale. In some sections, they'll probably be taking out 1 to 4 feet. I mean, it's very full, and it was definitely a deep channel to begin with. The sections that, were clean near, ironically, the drainage structure, it's farther up than my knee to my hip in some places. So it definitely was a very deep swale to begin with. So their recommendation and kind of why they're hoping that they could still fall under their maintenance exemption is because the only improvements that they are really doing is those 2 lateral drains. And that's really just to mitigate that one side of the field that is flooding because it comes straight off the hill, and just separating it over to the other so it more evenly distributes downwards to the structures.
When I told them that I suspected a stormwater management permit would be needed, that was when they came to the CPC. I was speaking with Tim, and he believed at the time that they were actually going to be stripping the sod from the entire field, which would clearly put them over the 1 acre mark.
Right.
If they're just going to go in there with a ditch witch and put in a couple of 2-inch drainage lines, then they're not going to hit the threshold.
Yeah. And, so they are going to like dethatch. So in some places it'll look bare. But I guess how they were explaining it is they kind of like go under that top layer and kind of scrape along the whole edge of the field. And then they're just going to overseed to kind of bring it back. I know it discussed it in one of these. I think, is it this one? Yeah. So it's called phrase mowing. So they're not, to my understanding, they're not going to be ripping it up, and they're just cleaning out the swales and adding those 2 lateral drains. They will be, reestablishing and putting some of the geotextile fabric down to keep the vegetation at bay. The goal is to do it in the fall, so they'll have a little bit of dieback. I can't imagine that this will probably grow back pretty quickly. It's a good lush vegetation out there, and it gets plenty of water. So, and in the swales, they were going to put most likely a wetland mix too. So they're going to try and reestablish some of the natives that have kind of popped up, because it is a nice little section of natives, I will admit.
But no, people around town commonly have their lawns dethatched. That's, to my mind, clearly maintenance. If they're not, last year, the description I got was they were going to physically be removing the sod and starting new. But if that's not the case, then I just don't see them hitting the threshold or even coming close.
Yeah, and it's at least my opinion that the rest of it, if this was properly maintained over the years, this, clearly wouldn't have been happening, but it'd be in small increments throughout the year as maintenance. So I think the goal is to maintain it in the future, so this doesn't happen again. So hopefully that does happen.
Great.
And then where'd my notes go? The other aspect I had was Ken's Foods is going to be filing, they just filed their stormwater management permit, and they're going to be following an NOI most likely on Monday, because that's the deadline. They're doing a 62,500 square foot expansion to their building. It's going to be on, if you're looking at it, to the right side. So one issue that I and the town planner are kind of coming up with, that I kind of want to make sure I'm just not losing my mind and kind of asking for something that's a little too egregious, is we found that the existing conditions plan that they're using is from the surveys that really were only taken in 2007. We realized that the 2017 applications for the most recent work were just stamped by PE, and it wasn't a full survey that was done. And because we have open permits, we have both the septic and just the general Ken's Food, NOI, and SMP that are open but are expired. I had been on them that they're expiring if they wanted to extend, but they chose not to submit an extension. But I do know, like, the wetland restoration area isn't up to snuff. They say they have a couple punch list items. So my kind of first preliminary comment to them was to ask for a progress as-built with new topographical study survey, because, I think we all know that work has been done, and for a proper design, I think that we should have those topos correct. And I even know when they were doing their work from the 2017 permit, some elevations were wrong. So they had to kind of reassess. So I think that kind of gave me enough inkling that this is something that the commission should know, as well as understanding their compliance with their previous permits before issuing new decisions. That's pretty important, I think. So I don't know if the commission had any yay or nay to that, if I was okay to keep pushing that. I thought it was kind of important to understand the site as it actually exists versus in 2007.
Absolutely. And another potential modification to the stormwater management bylaw, it's a not an uncommon thing for communities to require for a submission for an NOI or an SMP that an on-the-ground survey no older than 2 years old.
Right.
I'm trying to think where I saw that last, but it's not a totally uncommon thing. But a 14-year-old survey that is known to have some errors, that's not.
Yeah, and even if it was 2017, that'd still be 4 years ago, and all of the construction and regrading has gone on. So that was kind of my thought process behind it.
If it's stamped by a PLS, the PLS will take it serious and will make sure it's an accurate reflection of what's on the ground at the time you stamped it.
Yeah, it was only stamped by PEs and a landscape architect. So that was kind of another thing, is that it should be stamped by a PLS at the very least. So I will continue with that as long as the commission's okay with it.
Is everybody on board with that? Okay.
Awesome.
Excellent.
And then the last one, and then all we have to do is issue our permits, is today I got a call about 194 Corderville. This is a very preliminary site plan. So their first question was, this is an existing deck that they just want to make into a living area, so they would completely enclose it. They stated that they would keep their existing footings and or replace in kind, which would be exempt already. But if they were to do this and create, an enclosed area, would the commission be okay with an RDA? It's probably closest point about 60 or so feet. And then they also, because I did note, I always kind of tell homeowners that have a couple projects that they're thinking of, is that permits are good for 3 years. And it's a lot easier to put everything on one site plan, one permit, than kind of doing it segmented. So they kind of they know that they want to put additions somewhere, and kind of wanted to get kind of a base view of what they were thinking. They also kind of wanted to put a patio. So I stipulated if they wanted an RDA for the patio, it should definitely stay outside of the 50, and as further away as possible. So they proposed it over here. And I did mention that, the commission has looked for infiltration, dry wells for roof runoff for new impervious areas. So they were understanding of that. But I think the first and foremost was, for an RDA for this area, would that be acceptable? Usually it's been 75 feet in a way. We asked for the RDA, but given it's kind of an existing structure, even though it's a little bit closer, would the commission be open to that?
Anyone have any objection to that? So or at this point, we're just talking about the enclosing the deck and the patio.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone have any objection to that being treated under an RDA?
No.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. I think the only one, I think this would be a notice of a notice of intent. It's inside the 50, obviously. For option C, it's probably a little bit further than 75 feet away. If they were to still collect roof runoff, would the commission be okay with option C as an RDA, or would they expect a notice of intent? Because this would be a complete new addition.
Yeah.
That's getting a little, that's excavating for, assuming there's no basement, it's still going to be excavating for a frost wall, and I'm a little less comfortable with that.
Okay.
Anybody here know the old joke about the camel's nose under the tent?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, the first one's okay, then
Yeah.
you get a little bit more, so yeah.
No, this is, the homeowner honestly, truly has not decided where he wants it. So the engineer is just trying to understand, if they choose A, B, C, or D, which application do they need to file? They're not saying, oh, we just get away with an RDA, because they came to me saying, we're even enclosing this even without the patio. You know, would a notice of intent be fine, or would an RGA be okay? You know, when sometimes, you know, technically the change of that could be exempt because they're really not doing any excavation at all. So they are very forthcoming with this, but I totally understand what you're saying. Okay, so NOI, RGA.
Yeah.
That is easy enough. Thank you. All right. Actually, I'm going to keep this up. Do we want to move back to Strawberry Hill first?
Sure.
So the only two conditions that I added as discussed were about the O&M and the final rain garden being reviewed and approved prior to construction.
Okay, unless anyone has any edits or changes they'd like to see, is there a motion to issue these conditions of approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Melissa?
Watson?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Guyer?
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
Wittes?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Okay. And then I did change as kind of we were talking a little bit this. So this already is also in our decision. You know, I don't know if that makes any difference for you guys. I know we kind of backed away from it a little bit, but the organic base, you know, slow release fertilizers are included as a standard condition. The Mass DOT approval, which I technically already have. This is one thing we didn't discuss, but was part of the original approval. It's basically just carrying through. And then I didn't finish editing this. So I was going to add, the commission has waived section 8.16, make the project financially infeasible, you know, and based on the fact that it's amendment to an existing project.
If others don't mind, I would prefer not to have anything in there about it being financially infeasible. I don't.
Okay.
I want somebody.
I agree 100%. We don't want to start.
This stuff is, yeah. It's going to be expensive, you know, where it's going to be tough to impose this stuff. It's going to be expensive for every project. And I think our reasons for waiving it is that it's an amendment to a recently issued decision and affects you know, a small part of the site, and
I think there should be something in there, recently issued decision, which was made prior to these rules coming into effect.
yes, there you go.
Yeah, good.
All right, which is where you have. Having been issued prior to new regulations being in effect, and
Being an effect with an E, the first one, and the second one is with an A. Oh, there we go. Right, yeah.
in effect, and only altering a small section, a small portion of the site.
Yeah. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. That being the case, do we have a motion to issue these conditions of approval?
So moved.
Second.
Second. I've got a second. Melissa?
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes. Wittes, I didn't hear you, sorry.
Quit.
How dare
Come
you?
on, Jerry.
Yes.
There you go.
It's not working tonight.
Yes.
Hey, it's better than yelling at your husband about your contacts. Just saying.
I can do that if you'd like.
Might make me feel better, to be honest. Okay. I I think that's all I have.
Okay, other business from anybody?
Yeah, I have one thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is, I know Melissa's probably, maybe give us an update at the next meeting on this. There's this little funny thing going on
Mhm.
at
At Breakneck Hill?
no, well,
Oh,
we can talk about that
Oh.
too. What I was gonna bring up is the little parcel of land on Parkerville Road, just before you hit the bridge, Mass Pike. There's a little piece of land there that people are dumping stuff into. Melissa's gotten after that a couple of times.
mhm.
And it's kind of it's an odd thing because I think,
Mhm.
Melissa, I think it's a stormwater feature
It
that was
is.
put there for Hubley Road, right? And there's nobody's taking care of it.
So, yes.
Maybe you know some more about this. And
I did a little bit more research after the last round, Carl. So I still haven't pieced the whole thing together. So yes, that little triangle that goes, to Old Parkerville, where we would love to have access to Halloran, and Parkerville Road, that little triangle is owned by, I think it's just the original developers that did Hubley Lane. And so in parts of the discussion during the public hearings, they too were worried about the amount of stormwater runoff coming down. And so there's a bunch of denials, appeals, etc. So I think it came in back and forth a couple times between us and DEP. And then finally it landed with the Concom. And so there's actually a stream that runs through that section and under the Mass Pike. So it's kind of a stormwater basin / restoration area / wetland / dumping ground. So in looking through, I couldn't find any like O&M documents, any discussions about what the area would look like in the future. I think the neighbor across the street, is the one who's dumping all their leaves and sticks and just lawn debris, fallen limbs, etc. It's definitely been happening for a number of years. I went in a little bit further the last time, and it's definitely very wet in there. But you can tell when you walk in that it's definitely a lot of leaf matter and lawn debris that has built up over time. The owner has cleared it up in the past. I played phone tag with him in a little bit. I think I owe him another call. They've always gone out and cleared it. Yep.
Can I ask a question? You're talking about the owner across the street.
No, the owner of the little triangle.
Oh.
Yeah. So they've been receptive, when I call, like, okay, I'll go send dad out, and go clean it. At least the stuff along, the road that they can get to. But it's
There's
definitely
a lot more of it there now again.
Yeah, I noticed that when I went by this week too. And it's definitely been historically kind of pushed in a little bit. So I think, and I'm glad you brought this up because I always forget, I think it is something that the commission should look at. Because I'm not sure where to bring it, to be honest. I don't know how you would maintain it, and I don't know if it's necessarily providing any stormwater function anymore. It's definitely a resource. There's no doubt about that. But, I think some cleanup needs to happen. I'm just not sure quite what. So I would recommend, and thank you, Carl, for bringing it up, that if you guys drive by to take a little peek in there and see what's going on.
Okay, now the other thing that I wanted to bring up, now this is going to be interesting, right? I know Melissa's working on a notice of intent for the Breakneck Hill dump. We're trying to get there, right? There's a wrinkle to this that you probably don't know about, is that about a year ago, Alexa Fallon, who I know Russ knows her, is in a butter, knows me from Rotary, right? Called me one day because I think it was Matt who was up there doing his wetland analysis, asking me what was going on, right? So during the conversation, I told her I thought it was Matt up there trying to figure out where the wetlands are. And then she said to me, I saw a blue spotted salamander up there. And I said, what? She said, yeah, I saw a blue spotted salamander up there, right? So I said, are you sure? She says, oh, yeah. She sent me an email message with a picture of one, right? So it puts me in the position of, I've had somebody tell me about a species of concern with the blue spotted salamander. I know Sherry knows all about this because they've got them in Westboro, right? And they've got them all the time. Every town around us has them, except Framingham, right? So I sent Melissa an email message. I have no idea what to do with this. And she was going to talk to Matt. I don't know. Did you get any feedback about? Because this could really complicate the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I didn't, but I'll definitely follow up with him. I think when I was looking, it's unless there's reason to believe that there's habitat there, if it's not mapped priority or estimated endangered species habitat. So we technically aren't obligated to do like a wildlife study during the notice of intent process. And I was just kind of thinking back. I guess I just found it interesting, that there hadn't been discussions about it in the past. I feel like there would have been some documentation of movement, between the other vernal pools we have to there, and I don't know if anyone else has known anything about that. I know I don't have any records of, kind of seeing that sort of migration, but I'm not sure.
How long ago was the picture taken?
No, it wasn't her picture. She sent me a picture of one. She said, this is what I saw, right? And it was definitely a blue spotted salmon. She didn't take a picture of it. Matter of fact, I asked her, I said, where was it and when did you see it? And she says, well, I don't remember how long ago it was. And I don't remember exactly where it is, which I understand because I can relate a similar story. I won't go into that because it's getting late. I can understand where she doesn't remember exactly where it was and when it was she saw it. But you remember seeing it, right? So I just wanted to, because I figured I'm obligated to bring it up, right? Because I was told about it, and that we might, as long as we know where we stand with this, in case they start work up there and somebody finds one, right? And then we get into why didn't we acknowledge the fact that this was seen and we're protected. So that's all I wanted to do. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else have any other business I'd like to bring up? All right, so I guess we're looking for one more motion. Anyone want to do the honors?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, Melissa?
Watson.
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Dyer.
Yes.
Gregory.
Yes.
Wittes.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, guys.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys, for always showing up.